Hallo ihr Lieben, wir machen heute weiter mit den Modalverben. Hi everyone, we're going to continue working on the modal verbs today. So far you have learned already what the modal verbs are. You've also learned their conjugation, so you know all of the stem changes. And we have gone through and actually constructed sentences, so you should remember all of the word order issues. So of course that means the modal verb is in second place, the other verb goes somewhere else. So as an example, you can say something like, Ich mag Türmchen. That's a word you guys don't have. Small towers. Bauen. And that means to build. So in this sentence, of course, here's my modal verb, conjugated for first person. And here at the very end is my infinitive. Now, and just to make sure that we are all on the same page, an infinitive, again, is the unconjugated verb. So that is the verb stem plus that en ending at the end. So in English, that would be to build, right? The way you find the words in the dictionary. Okay. Now, when we went through the modal verbs, I gave you a total of 6.5 of them. And that 0.5, that seventh verb, was möchten. Now, I'm sure you guys remember that that meant to would like. It sounds really awkward when you make it an infinitive because it sounds conjugated, but to would like. Just remember it that way. The reason we're going to take this one out and look at it differently is, first of all, because it's a different form from the other ones. But second of all, it doesn't follow the conjugation rules the same way. So when you had the other group, when you had like this one, you had a stem change in singular. Now I already said this is a different form. So in that form, you already have different changes. So it becomes Ich möchte. I apologize for the bell. Du möchtest. Er, sie, and es möchte. Wir möchten. Ihr möchtet. And sie möchten. So if you look at the pattern of endings, you have the same pattern, that first and third in singular match, just like they do in plural, right? First and third match. So we don't have an S10-10 pattern. Please remember that. It is not following your S10-10 rules. However, it is also not fully following the other rules because we have this extra E. So möchte is sort of like your new stem in its entirety, and then you're adding the endings that you have for the other modal verbs. So you have an N, a T, an N, no extra, ST, and no extra. Whichever way you want to remember it, if you want to just memorize this form, that's fine. Just make sure that you don't forget the extra E when you're looking at these forms. So we have all the extra E's. Okay. Again, this means to would like. Now we of course also have a verb for want. And want was wollen. That is your misnomer a lot of the times. So I could say something, Ich will heute früh nach Hause gehen. Now you guys know every single word in that sentence, so I actually want you guys to give me the translation for this. I'm going to go over it in a second, but you need to do it first. So now that you're done, or you at least hopefully put a good guess in, it means I want to go home early today. So that is in a funky order. I'm going to rewrite it the way I just said it. So I want to go home early today. So here's your early and your today. They, of course, switch places. Now we had said that we have our infinitives at the very end of the sentence, and here's your conjugated modal. So we do the same thing. We have my conjugated modal up here, but here's the infinitive. Right? So the infinitive in English stands right behind it. So ich will heute früh nach Hause gehen. Now the reason I point this out is because if you say I want, in German that is considered impolite. So this is something like, may I go to the restroom? Can I go to the restroom? You would be polite and say, may I, as opposed to just saying, can I, when teachers respond with, well, can you? In German, we don't do that with may and can. That doesn't happen, but we do it with möchten and wollen. So the same thing applies for kids with möchten and wollen. So a more polite way of saying this, if you were maybe telling somebody and, implying that they need to give you permission, you would say, ich möchte heute früh nach Hause gehen. So same meaning ultimately, but you're being more polite. So here's your modal, and it's would like as opposed to want. Okay, we're going to come back to möchten in a little bit. For now, I'm going to keep going so that you guys actually have the whole content before you start doing work on your own, and you can go back over your notes. So every single time we've done sentences with modal verbs so far, let me actually flip the page to a fresh one. I've told you guys that what we're going to have is the modal verb in second place and the infinitive at the very end. Now, with möchten in particular, but with all the other ones as well, that is not always true. So I can have sentences like, ich will tanzen, right? I want to dance. That makes sense. So here's my conjugated modal in second place and the infinitive at the end. And most of the time that is true. But especially when we have the verb möchten, what we do a lot of the time is we actually omit or drop this verb. Now in this case, ich will doesn't make any sense. I want, what do you want? We don't know. Sorry guys. However, if I say something like, ich möchte einen Apfel, that would mean I would like an apple. An apple. So would like an I. So I would like an apple. Now here's my missing verb. This is where my infinitive is supposed to go. And it's missing. What would you like the apple for, right? You probably want it because you're going to eat the apple. Or maybe you're telling a store person you would like to buy an apple. Whatever the context is, this by itself, without that infinitive, makes sense. So we often go ahead and just omit that infinitive at the end. So many bells. So just pay attention to the meaning of the sentence, and sometimes we omit it. There is no rhyme or reason as to specifically what sentences work this way. For now, what I want you to just think of is, does it make sense without that second verb? If it does, you can probably omit it. Now, you're going to grab a textbook. Actually, I'm going to project it so you don't need to grab the textbook, but I'm going to write down the pages for you anyway in case you want to go back to it at home. What I'm going to show you is an activity where there's a bunch of omitted infinitives. And what you are supposed to do is figure out which infinitive works in the blanks, or in the non-existing ones. So this is where we're at. Exercise 4-7. So we have verbs. We have trinken, gehen, essen, fliegen, and sprechen. You should know what all of those mean. There's a total of 5 of them, and you have 8 sentences. So some of these get used more than once. what I want you to do in your composition book is just write down which one of these you're going to use. So if you have, wir müssen jetzt in die Vorlesung, what is omitted? What word could fit at the end of that? And of course, you don't have to conjugate because it's an infinitive. Okay, so I'm going to project the little activity for you guys. And what I want you to do, looking at this, we have 8 sentences and we have 5 infinitives that fit. Now I'm going to project questions for each one of these. And what I want you to do is pick which one of the 5 in each case fits the sentence. So I'm going to go through them with you guys one by one, and it'll tell you when you're guessing whether or not you're right or not. So the first one we have, wir müssen jetzt in die Vorlesung. Number 2, können deine Eltern Deutsch? Number 3, möchten sie ein Stück Kuchen? Number 4, darf deine kleine Schwester immer noch nicht in die Disco? Number 5, möchtest du auch nach Australien? Number 6, wollt ihr lieber Bier oder Wein? Number 7, im Winter mag ich kein Eis. Number 8, warum willst du denn nicht ins Kino? So, I hope you guys did pretty well on those. They should have been straightforward. If you were having trouble with them, it is probably related to vocab. So, Vorlesung, chapter 1. Ein Stück Kuchen, that is from this chapter, that is brand new. In die Disco, that should be obvious. Nach, meaning to, and then we have a country. Bier, Wein, what does lieber mean, of course. And in the last one, we just have ins Kino, again, content. Hopefully you guys know that one. That's also chapter 2, I want to say. Okay. So when you are done with that, you have 2 further things that you need to do before we get back with everyone in the classroom on Friday. First of all, you're going to do a workbook activity. And the workbook activity is on page 112, and it's exercise 4-5. So that is due Friday. Now this one, you're differentiating between möchten, as promised, you're getting back to that, and mögen. So to like and would like, completely different meanings. You have to choose between the 2 and you're conjugating. The second thing you're going to do, I'm going to project it in 1 second, is a textbook activity. And, well, it's not really a textbook activity. It is a writing activity. It just happens to be out of the textbook. And that is on page 130. And it is 4-19. Now, before I show you what it is, I'm going to write some more info. Okay, whoops. Okay, so for this activity, I'm going to show you the questions in a second. It is a writing activity, and you're writing in your composition book. I expect a minimum of 12 sentences. I want you to skip every other line in your writing, and I want you to have at least 1 compound sentence. That means you have to use a conjunction, or you have to take 2 sentences and connect them. Here is the activity that you're going to be writing. If you need to take a picture because you're not going to have this in front of you or access to it, then take a picture. Otherwise, you can access it from the website as well. So here are the questions. Notice there's only 8 of them, so that means you have to write more than 1 sentence for at least 4 of them, or write 2 or 3 sentences for several. You're going to be using the modal verbs, and you are writing about yourself, so it's asking you questions. If any of this vocab is unfamiliar, it is your job to look it up. Okay, don't tell me later that you didn't understand the questions. It is your job to look it up, or come and ask me what they mean, what the different words mean. Hey guys, that is it for the video. Go get started.